Okay, so today we had music, and again, we didn't get to do lead stuff, which I kind of expected, but we have music on Thursday, so I'm hoping that means we get to do lead stuff, because he said very soon he's going to be moving on to leads. He was hoping to get to them today, but he didn't know if he'd have time, so we did some ensemble and orphan stuff, and then, kind of just moved on. You know, like, we went back into, the auditorium and talked about backstories, because we all filled out papers that it's like this, whether you're a lead or an ensemble member, and they all had questions on them. Which is, we've never done this before in theater. I mean, we've done backstories, and we've talked about them with Andrea, but I really love how, like, there are a lot of new people, and not just, I mean, in every show there's a lot of new people usually, but there are a lot of new people, and there are a lot of new people that are playing leads, and Andrea is trying to, I think, assist everyone, because we have it's such a big show, and it deals with such intense issues, and she wants to make sure everything connects, because she's not going to put up half-assed characters on stage for a show that, especially if she thinks is going to sell out, which she told us today, because it's so well known, she thinks it's going to sell out. Our auditorium holds like 1,200 people, and if even one show sells out, that a full house, that's 1,200 people, let alone four, which is like 4,000, 5,000 people. So that's nerve-wracking when you have to sing 6 solos and dance a lot. I found out that I'll be dancing in, what was it? I'll be dancing in It's a Fine Life. I'll be dancing in I'd Do Anything. I'll be dancing in Papa. I don't think I'll be dancing in As Long as He Needs Me, but Bill will be there, which will be interesting, because it's always Nancy by herself, but Bill's actually going to be in the scene, in the song. I don't know how yet, but he's going to be. Our director does really cool things like that people don't usually do. So excited. And we're going to be doing that on Monday, because we are a week ahead of schedule. Our calendars are pretty much obsolete at this point, because we've done so well. That was me knocking on wood. I really hope we keep up the pace. We're almost done with Act 1. We've got 4 more pages to block, and then the 2 songs to choreograph. So that's exciting. Well, like 3 songs to choreograph. You include Consider Yourself, but I'm not in that. So I only have 2 songs to learn the dances to. I'm not choreographing them. Anyways, back on topic. We filled out these sheets, and we talked about them today. And Bill talked about his story a lot, which helped me, and so did Fagin and Dodger, and so it helped me finish mine, kind of. Because we had to pick, one of the last question was we had to pick a story from our childhood, and, why we think it's the reason we are who we are today. And so I talked about how, Nancy's father used to beat her and her mother, and she remembers her mother crying all the time, but she just kind of sat there and took it. And her mother never tried to save her. Her mother couldn't even save herself, until one day she tried to keep, her husband, well, Nancy's father, off of her, and Nancy was 8 years old, and he didn't like it, so he took her mother away. He took her out the door, and Nancy waited for them to come back, and they never came back. And she hadn't eaten, so she went out into the street to look for her parents, and she ran into a rather dirty man, who gave her something to eat and a roof over her head, and taught her how to make a living, and she's been doing it ever since. She doesn't know whatever happened to her mother and father. So it's interesting. Nancy never wanted to be her mother, but she kind of becomes her, because she deals with Bill, but I'll get to that later. This is gonna be a long video, because it was great stuff today. And Fagin talked about how his, father was killed by the police when he was trying to defend Fagin, for stealing, because they needed the money to survive. And Fagin's mother resented him for it and disowned him, and so he has a bad relationship with his mother, so he gets really annoyed when Oliver asks Nancy if she's the mother there, which is a scene we added, so you guys don't know what the heck I'm talking about. But anyways, Fagin never wants to see a child without a parent, but at the same time he can't be a parent to everyone, so he has this like passive-aggressive attitude. He's like really close with Dodger and like his first generation of thieves, but the others he's not as fond of, and he has reasons for being fond of Dodger, which is Chris's story, which is really cool, but I won't talk about it because it's not mine. I might talk about it later, but not right now. And so Nancy was not his favorite. Fagin took her in. There goes my light again. Okay. Fagin took Nancy in, but he didn't treat her he didn't treat her badly, but he didn't treat her well. He kind of passive aggressive. He kind of pushes the kids around a bit, and since Nancy was beaten by her father, she like looked up to Fagin as like an authority figure, but she doesn't like him. It's just a business transaction, but every man who's had authority in her life has pushed her around. And so it's even more interesting that she ends up with Bill, especially because Nolan had Bill's backstory as he ran away from home and he tried to pickpocket Fagin, and Fagin ended up taking him in, and that's where Bill met Nancy, and he said that Nancy was the only girl that was nice to him, and he talked about growing up a bit, and he got better, and he became the best pickpocket, which is kind of like Dodger, and they even say Dodger's gonna be a right little Bill Sykes, so when he's older, so it's like, it all connects, and Andrew's really impressed that none of us talked to each other, but all of our stories kind of intertwined, and Bill ended up falling in love with Nancy. He says that he loves Nancy. He just never tells her. He ended up like they started a relationship. We haven't discussed those details together, so I don't know how that's all going to go down. But they got older. They started being together, and Bill went to counter his father, who used to abuse him, and he got mad at his father, who at first didn't recognize him and then realized who he was, and he got mad, and he ended up killing him, and that was his first murder. And he had never wanted to be his father. His father used to hit his mother. His mother used to hit him, so he didn't want to be in that abusive type of setting. But when he went back home, Nancy, I guess, was asking questions, and he hit her, and essentially became his father after killing his father. So it was very, very interesting, and especially with Nancy's background, I realized that her father used to hit her and her mother, and Fagin pushed her around, and then she fell in love with Bill, who she thought was different, and then he kind of became this monster. And Andrew said it's kind of like the reverse of Beauty and the Beast, too, where Belle ends up falling in love with the monster, and then he turns into a prince. It's kind of the opposite, but Nancy's in too deep as it is when she's in love with Bill, and she thinks she can fix him. And Andrea told this really, really, like, emotional story. Well, I mean, Andrea, she wasn't, like, crying or anything, but it was a really emotionally heavy story, and about how she loved this boy when she was a kid, and he lived in her apartment complex or whatever, and he was in a bad situation where he's being abused, and she thought she could fix him. She thought she could be the good in his life. And Nancy definitely is kind of like that, as long as Bill needs her. The thing that's different about Bill that isn't like Fagin or her father who pushed her around is that Bill needs her. She was never needed by her father or Fagin, and that's what makes Bill different, and that's what makes her want to stay with him. When she sees Fagin, it's for business reasons. She doesn't see her father ever, so it's like all authority figures push her around, so she's more accepting of that. She doesn't know that that's wrong, essentially. Except I kind of think she does, because she wants to tell Bill to stop, especially because she knew who he used to be, but she doesn't. She doesn't tell him to stop. And it's just, I haven't figured it all out yet, but she's got a very interesting mind, and some other people shared some of their stories of similar situations, and it was really good for me to hear all that today. But then I kind of talked about my relationship with Oliver, and how much how if there's one thing I would never change, it would be loving Bill, which Andrea said was interesting, and she told me that was a good interesting today because of all the things that have happened to Nancy and all the things she's done. Loving Bill is one thing she wouldn't change, no matter what he does to her. And in the original show, Nancy dies. Bill kills her. But in this show, things are going to be a bit different. So I'm interested to see how I'm going to pull this all off. But I talked about my relationship with Oliver a bit, just because we were talking about backstories, and Oliver said something, and I was like, oh, I realized this, because Andrea asked Bumble and Dodger how they felt about Oliver, and then even Fagin, and I was like, everyone sees Oliver as just another boy. Yeah, I mean, he's kind of important right now because he might snitch, or he's kind of important because of he asked for more, or he almost caught Dodger pickpocketing, but the the truth is everyone just sees him as another boy, and he just has a potential to either be good for that person or bad for that person, and that's why they keep him around, so they can keep an eye on him. But I see Oliver as Oliver, who is sweet and naive and who is young, like Nancy was young. And I think Nancy also sees who he could become, how he was like her, how he could be the next Dodger, how he could even be Bill. At this point, I think Nancy, while she's accepting of her lifestyle and even kind of enjoys it, and she loves Bill and Dodger and everything. Oh, there goes my screen again. While she loves them, it's one of those things where you love something even though you know you shouldn't. And Nancy can't save Bill and Dodger. They're too far in, and she's too far in, and she knows that they can't save themselves. And in that sense, she's like her mother, where her mother never stepped in to save her, and her mother never could save herself. Nancy feels as if she's a lost cause. Nancy doesn't love herself. Nancy really doesn't love her life, even though she says it's a fine life. She doesn't. She doesn't like it at all anymore. And Oliver is kind of her epiphany in that sense, I think. She can save Oliver, and she sings a reprise of As Long As He Needs Me, but the he becomes Oliver, and Oliver needs her. And I think she cares for Oliver, but I talked to Andrea Ellis. I don't think she loves him, and Andrea agreed she doesn't love him. She doesn't want to be his mother. She doesn't think she's good enough to be a mother. She wouldn't want to be Oliver's mother, especially with how good Oliver is. She wouldn't feel deserving, so she couldn't do it. But she's good enough to save him. He's better than their life, and he's better than her. And while she could easily keep him around and he could become Dodger, who's going to become Bill, while she could ensure that and ensure his safety, because she does protect him from Bill. She throws herself in the way so Bill can't hit Oliver. She does all these things, but while she does all these things, it's more, I feel like it's more to prove that she's not her mother and to protect what good she's found in Oliver, not so much because it's Oliver, but because of the good she sees in Oliver. He doesn't deserve to be with them. He has a grandfather, and he has a home and somebody who will love him, which is something that she didn't have even when she did have a home. And her greatest achievement would be to save Oliver, when prior to that it would probably be graduating Fagin's Academy. So it was pretty intense today. Oliver stands a chance, and we talked all about that. We're doing Oom Papa tomorrow. Like I said, we're like a week ahead. And then on Monday, we're doing As Long As He Needs Me, which I'm excited about. So it was a great day. Oh, and I had Happy Birthday sung to me like 6 times. And we had cake. And they got me a notebook. And Andrea wrote something in it. It's just a little notebook. And it has a bookmark. And a card that Andrea got me. And I just thought it was really nice, because it was something small and simple, but nice. And it was a great day. And I'm really happy with how things turned out. It was a great character circle. And Nolan posted Happy Birthday Nancy on my wall, which I thought was really sweet. So some thanks, Bill. And just the gang was great. Well, I mean, everybody. I always call everybody a gang, but it's confusing now when Fagin's gang is an actual thing. I don't know. I'm gonna go put my script away. So, thanks guys. I doubt anyone will watch all 14 minutes of it, but if you did, kudos to you.